I'm gonna go ahead and get this meeting started. Appreciate everybody showing up here tonight. Obviously, this is a very important meeting for the CAM school district. So it's great to see all of the people here that are interested in what kind of the future is for the CAM school district. So again, thank you all for coming out here tonight. As you can see on the screen, we've got some community engagement pieces that we do at the end of every one of these meetings. You will need a smartphone or a tablet or something like that to participate in the voting at the end of the meeting here tonight. If you don't have one, we do have a couple of extra iPads that we can hand out and let you participate that way. There's not going to be any paper copies. This is a live poll that we're going to do to get us down to a point where we can eliminate some options and everybody in the community can see how the voting is going towards what these options and ideas are. All right. So as that says, menti.com is where you'll have to go. And we'll have another code at the end of the meeting after we go through the information and the options. We do have a lot to cover tonight. So I'll try and be speedy, but I'm just curious, who has not been to a community meeting regarding the school district this process yet? If you just raise your hand if this is your first meeting. Awesome, good deal. So we put some things back into the presentation that cover the process, the where are we now, and a lot of that information that we've been told maybe we need to go back over. So it's good to see the new faces here tonight and everything. Our agenda, we're gonna do a welcome and recap. We're gonna go through some financial information. The where are we now? That's the data on the existing buildings and kind of our process. We're gonna talk about the previous community surveys and what that's told us. We're gonna give you a recap on the focus groups. We've had 7 different focus groups. They've all identified a number of priorities. Then we're gonna jump into these ideas to stimulate discussion. Most of these are things that you've seen. There's more detail in them as far as the overall scope. We've written out that a little bit more so you can understand what that is. We've added an option for everyone to consider. And then we're going to go into a survey. And again, this is similar to what we've done in the past with the smartphones and that menti.com website, but we're going to ask you to start eliminating options. And then everybody in the room and in the community, we've also got a bunch of people on Zoom that are participating. They can participate in real time also, but we'll be able to see where we're at tonight after the financial information, the recap, and the presentation of the options, and try and get to a point where we can eliminate some options and focus on one particular solution to move forward with. I do want to just mention all of the team and the people that are participating in this process. My name is Derek O'Neill. I'm with Alley Pointer Maquetto Architecture. Also with Alley Pointer tonight, we have Daniel Conway and we have Lennon O'Neill. No coincidence on the last name. She's an intern. That is my daughter. She's an intern with us this summer and she's helping out. We also have a couple of engineering partners that are not here tonight. You've also got a construction manager that the school has hired in Boyd Jones. They were also not able to be here tonight. We have Susan Gerlach with PFM Financial. She's the school's financial expert. She has done a great job of putting together all of the information that some of the community members are going to present tonight. And then also the information that you see on the handout in front of you. Then obviously we've got all of you as community members for the CAM school district. I would like any school board members that are present to raise their hand. Awesome. There's nothing's being decided. There's no action tonight from the meeting tonight. We also have Superintendent Paul Cron over there, if you've not met him. And that takes us through the introductions. A couple of goals from this process: safety and security of all students and staff, provide environments that enhance and improve the educational experience for all students and staff. We want to maximize existing square footage and space. We want to enhance community pride in the schools, If you've been to one of these meetings, you've heard me talk about CAM first. I've even asked some survey questions about can you move forward with a CAM first approach, and what does that mean? Move forward with a community-based solution. This process is 100% transparent. All of the information is out there for you as a community to hear, to see, and to provide input on. And then the school board and a facilities committee is taking that input and moving forward with a solution that they feel would be supported by all of you, the community here. Our process is pretty simple. There's 3 points. Where are we now? Where do we want to be? And how do we get there? So we've gone through the where are we now? That's the existing conditions. You'll also hear me call it the status quo. That's just the baseline of where we are now, age of facilities, things that need to be done. Where do we want to be? That's as we have started to go through this process. These 4 ideas that we're going to present again here tonight. That's the where do we want to go, and how do we get there piece is where we start to weave in the financial information. Is this something that the community would support a general obligation bond on? What are the other funding mechanisms to implement that can be implemented to help achieve this goal? Maybe it's pieces that are taken off in chunks as opposed to doing one big project at a time. Those are all of the pieces of the how do we get there. Our process assesses current deficiencies and needs, provides comparable information, evaluating operational deficiencies, educating a diverse community committee. That's all of you, and we have a facilities committee and then the focus groups that have met. Create options and scenarios based on this assessment, focus groups, priorities, and community input. We've added an option in here that you haven't seen in any of the community meetings yet based on this input. We've refined all of the options with more detail to try and get everyone to understand what the big picture is with each one of these scenarios that we're asking you to provide your input on. We want to generate a master plan and implementation concepts. Again, we're looking long-term and long-term into the future here. So we don't want to do a renovation or an addition on a building that then you have to tear down in 5 years because you wish you would have done something different, or it doesn't work with that long-term vision. So we're trying to really think forward on what that best solution is. And if we need to bite out chunks of it, we can do that so you can still implement that master plan. And then we have community committees and focus groups to make recommendations to the school board for the adoption of this master plan. So at the very end of this, we're going to show you a schedule. So with the input tonight, there's a facilities committee that has met a couple of times. They will take this information, we'll discuss it again and see if there is a consensus to make a recommendation to the school board as an option to move forward with. The school board can then choose to move forward with that and review the funding mechanisms, potentially put out a vote for a general obligation bond to pay for any of that, and then move forward with that. So we're going to talk a little bit about the financial piece. There's a couple of definitions. Again, I didn't mention, but there is a website out there that has all of these past presentations. It has PDF copies of all of the slides that we show you. There's the video recordings from the Zoom recordings. There's notes from the focus group meetings. All of that information is out there. I'm not going to go through every single definition, but if you want to go back and read these, you can certainly do that. I'm going to hit the ones that are important here. So athletic facility. For purposes of determining if the resolution and hearing process outlined in recent legislation extending SAVE needs to be followed, an athletic structure is an athletic structure that is not physically attached to a school attendance center. An athletic facility infrastructure project is one that includes in whole or in part the construction of an athletic facility and does not include repair or maintenance. That's important because of some of the funding changes. Particularly, it mentions SAVE. I'm going to get to that, but that's a funding mechanism that a school uses to pay for some of these projects. General fund. The financial committee, they're going to hopefully hit on that hard and why that is an important piece to making the school run efficiently. As we talk about, as we've gone through surveys and we ask people what their priorities are, retaining quality teachers, recruiting top teachers. Those are the 2 things that consistently come up when we've asked those questions in these surveys, you'll see that the general fund is how you pay for those teachers. And we need to take pressure off of that with any of the other ongoing maintenance items, inefficient operations in the facilities, if you want to be able to pay those teachers more and recruit those teachers. So the general fund is the fund that receives the revenues from the school finance formula. It is a governmental fund under GAAP and accounts for the revenues and expenditures for the educational program and most school district operations. All monies received by a school corporation from taxes and other sources must be accounted for in the general fund, except monies required by law to be accounted for in another fund. Makes sense, right? We have physical plant and equipment levy, Pebble. You'll hear us talk about Pebble tonight. A capital projects fund financed by a maximum of $1.67 per thousand assessed valuation. The board may approve an additional 33 cents annually in property tax, and that is for a period of 10 years. SAVE, secure and advanced vision for education. It's a 1 cent sales tax source for funding school district infrastructure needs and property tax release. Every school district in the state has this. It's been called the penny sales tax. It's been called silo, but it is an important piece to, again, funding projects, funding ongoing maintenance, and a number of other things. With that, I'm going to turn it over to, we've got about 3 or 4 people on the financial committee that are going to talk here. So we had a focus group meeting, a financial focus group meeting last week. And from that meeting, yeah.
And spent a little time with the information that you will see tonight. We went back over it Monday night with these 3. They are going to give you what they feel are the highlights for the community. There's more detail in those slides and that they're going to hit on. So if you want to read those and ask questions, people like myself, Derek, or Susan might help answer questions as well. So I want to thank them again for all their time and effort. Look forward to help the community understand where we're at financially.
Okay. Firstly, we're going to put Paul on the spot because he told us to do this. So if anybody has any questions anytime, well, maybe not middle of the night, but any other time, if you want to write down his cell phone number, he will get back to you if he doesn't answer. So if you want to write it down, it is 712-249-6147. With that said, I'm going to say this. We are definitely not experts in school finance. I work in a bank. I thought I knew a little bit about it, but I don't. It's kind of I think it's kind of odd how some of these things work. But anyway, we're going to kind of go through this here, through some of the slides we went through the other day. So, you want to
I can start. Basically, if you can't see, it's just a broad overview of like a flow chart of how confusing how the funds in schools work. The flow chart this is the big one that we talked about, the general fund here. This is where a lot of your funds come from, but what people don't know is that there are several other funds that you have to use for certain things. So the Pebble fund over there, like you can buy a school bus with Pebble money, but you can't repair a school bus with Pebble money. They're just, the state makes us.
Rules, that's law.
Yeah, the state has laws.
It's all dictated by legislation and what allows school districts to do what they can do.
Right. So
instead of repairing buses, it would lease buses out of Pebble, frees up the general fund.
Right. Yeah.
The more money we can keep in the general fund is our teacher salary. That's the big one.
If we want teachers to come in, we need to protect our general fund. That way we can pay these teachers what they're worth, and that way we can give them the raises when they ask for raises. If we keep using the money that we can't, there's a lot of loopholes. There's ways that we can pay teachers, like your teacher leaders, from different funds because there's loopholes, so to speak, as far as a teacher leader is a teacher, but their funding can come from other accounts that wouldn't be the general fund. So there's workarounds, but overall, we just want to protect the general fund.
Right, and then there's SAVE, which is what everybody refers to as the penny sales tax. You can't read the description, but it's a fund to use for facility projects. Also, it says PEPAL and PEPAL purposes. That was what we voted on last year.
We did the
2 years ago.
We did the PEPAL levy. It expires in 2026.
The revenue purpose
the
statement.
Purpose statement that we did last month,
And it expires in 2050.
and it will expire in 2050.
Yeah.
That allows us to use the penny sales tax.
Right. It was a very broad statement. So instead of being very specific, let us use the money as broadly as we can to pay for some other things to keep that money in the general fund.
The SAVE also is something, it's not a property tax. The SAVE here, oops. The SAVE account here is not from property tax, and it's something that everyone all over Iowa gets, and we get it equally. It's distributed equally among the state. So we even get benefits, sales tax online, people shop online, penny sales tax, we're benefit from that when people shop online too. So
those are the three big ones that you'll probably hear talked about, and then potentially the fourth one will be debt service or the bond that we may get into.
I'm gonna skip that. Like, yeah. Nobody can read that anyway. This one, this unspent authorized budget in the bottom. Paul is absolutely adamant. We talked about this for I don't know how long at both the facilities meeting and Monday night. This bottom number is probably the most important number.
All of school finance.
Oh yeah. This number, although 2.6 million maybe look like a lot, if this number would ever go negative, like if we lost money in a year for whatever reason, this number goes negative, we have 1 year to fix it, or we're essentially done.
and when it starts to decline, it goes fast. Like schools spend money. I mean, if we have 3 roofs to repair, then if it has to come out of there, then they're gonna go fast. That's not very much money when we have 3 buildings. I guess what we're trying to say. $2 million.
So the note I had on here was put in a little perspective. Money coming in, every student is worth $7,247 in the school district. Okay, every student that goes to the Connections Academy to our district is only worth 3.5%.
Of that
of the 7,247 or $245. So during COVID, when we had a lot of people do Connections Academy, that you can see the numbers reflect.
Right, you can't see it. This is 2018, 2019, and 2020, and then drop down here to 21, 22, 23. So this 9 million. Yes, it's expenditures from 9 million out there in 2020. It jumped to 12 million, but that is in consideration to all the students that took online from the Iowa Connections Academy. So it had a huge jump in expenditures here from the 2020 to 2021, but of course, we had several online learners that year. So that's why anticipating in 2022 that it drops quite a bit because we go back to normal life.
Anticipation is the numbers we were told. Connections Academy is going to go from 1,100 students to back to 800. So that'll bring money back in the district's pocket.
And then this number constantly changes as well by our enrollment, by Connections Academy enrollment. It goes up and down by, unseen expenditures can make it go down. I mean, it's an ever evolving, moving target.
Well, and not just online connections, just in school in general. I mean, you've all seen how quickly your student class sizes can change from 13 to 20. I mean, enrollment numbers are always moving. These numbers are always fluctuating all the time. So it's hard to anticipate.
This gets into a little bit more detail as far as per page. You can see Adam was talking about the $7,247 per student. 2019 enrollment was 506 kids essentially. October 2020 was 494. So I think we've been fairly stable over the years, but obviously you don't know what the future is going to hold. Obviously we want that to increase, but just never quite know. And then down below there, what the general fund is made up from, 39.9% one of our property taxes goes into the general fund. The state funding is 24.1, and the other revenues, which is Connections Academy income and others, is 34%. So that just kind of is a makeup of what goes into the general funds.
I think I wrote it down that it was like 80% of teacher salaries come from general fund. So, oh, thank you.
Yep.
For this district last year was 77.5. So you're right in the average of about 80%. Salaries are coming to general fund expenditures.
Well, rebuilding.
So some of the things that our board has done to help protect the general fund is the bus leases, the copier leases, those are coming out of Pebble and Safe. They're not coming out of any general fund expenditure.
That's the loopholes where if you found a way to use it from Pebble, and so it takes the pressure off of the general fund because we found, I mean, if you lease buses, you come out of a different fund.
The copier lease was a 5-year lease, and that included all the toner, all the paper, everything. So if we think of normally as buying paper, it's just a general fund expense. They were creative enough to find a way to take it out of Pebble by doing it as a lease. Same way with buses, same way with
Technology agreements.
Computers. All kind of comes out of Pebble.
Those right there are, they got little to no debt that the district has.
This is just kind of in a nutshell, the save money, kind of a recap there. Basically, it generates $500,000 a year, about $1,000 a student is what comes in from save. The ending balances in June in that account, $931,000. The Pebble, kind of the same slide, but this is based off the $1.34 levy fund that the assessed or taxable valuation of the district is $477 million. Taking it times to 33 and the $1.34 generates about $800,000 a year, or about $2,000 a student. So ending balance in that account is $1.8 million, which may sound like a lot, but they've been kind of saving up. Depending on what happens tonight and in the future here, that will go off quickly.
Well, the Pebble, yeah, the Pebble fund is something that we would use to repair the roofs. Like if they're, all the talk is like three buildings need 3 roof repairs, and I don't know, I'm sure we have a lot of contractors and buildings. How much is it to repair the roofs?
And upcoming bus leases, that was a topic. You don't realize how many buses, how fast they get in poor shape, what the state says are the requirements. But he told us the other night a new bus to buy operates $90,000.
Buy a new bus,
yeah,
roughly $90,000.
If we can lease them, not pay repair on, just keep rolling over.
Are all repairs guaranteed in that?
All repairs, everything but an oil change.
Okay, are we paying someone to transfer buses from our school district to the location of it and paying them back?
Yeah, that's a general fund expense.
Okay, so I'm a little biased on this one. We repair the school district's buses. We charge you what, we're at $7 an hour? Okay, when your bus hits our lot, is it not guaranteed to be the next day?
Yes, it
Is the priority. Colin tells all of his clients that our kids' safety depends on these buses. They come first. So you're telling me the difference between paying someone to take a bus up there to come back, go pick it up and come back, will be that much difference in the repair time on a bus we already own?
Depends on the repair and what it is.
Are they going to make it a priority? Or if all their big days are full, are you going to have to sit away?
At least it's spare bus, then it's not a problem.
What if you have 2 buses break down?
We can go through what ifs all night long. But what we're saying is the repair is at a general fund expense or a couple. In a lease program, they are under warranty. They roll every 3 years. They're not a 10-year-old bus. We know where the repairs are coming from. Those are the things that could be budgeted. We know the pot of money that they're coming out of and would protect the general fund. And that's kind of the conversation tonight is what are we doing to help the district look at general fund savings for things that they have to pay in there by law, like main salaries, versus things they can move to and improve. When you're talking about your facilities, you're looking at things that you can do to your facilities that will make them more efficient. Maybe it's more efficient on utilities, because utilities is a general fund expense, versus the structure of the building and who is in the program at that building. So that's the conversation tonight. I understand your perspective very closely. Okay, I know all those repairs and where they come from, and how many times. That we have a bus down there today. They got priority. They're very, very good at what they're doing for the student.
So, okay, the next slide here is talks about the GO bonds and the debt service levy. We're going to get into this in more and more detail as we go along here, but GO bonds require 60% approval with a vote, 60% plus one, I think it's called. Maximum term of 20 years. What we're kind of looking at is you can do a $2.70 levy per $1,000 valuation, and then you can ask for another one up to $405 total. We'll get into that a little bit more detail also. You can only borrow up to 5% of your district's assessed value, which is currently $627 million, which would get you your maximum you can possibly ever borrow is $31,378,000. That includes all your leases and everything else too. Here it is again. Kind of a little bit more detail. If you pass the $2.70 levy, again, the taxable valuation of the district's $484 million times 270. It would bring in $1.3 million a year. If you did a 20-year loan with interest and everything, you would pay $26 million. You get back into a loan amount then, or a bond amount of approximately $20 million. That's how much you would borrow. If you did the 405, kind of the same math, your total 20 years of payments would be $39,264,000, or back into a loan amount of about approximately $30 million.
It's two different votes, 270, then up to 405. That some people don't understand that, so I'm trying to make it clear. It'd be an add-on of $1.35.
So it was
not
vote,
270 and 405.
There would be two separate questions on the same ballot.
If it goes to, if both votes pass and it goes up to 405, the school board would decide on that number from between 270 and 405. They would pay for that. If they say we need $3.33, that's the number they choose.
I think the important thing to remember is like we're the benefit of getting a bond would be to alleviate the stress on general fund, which goes back to being able to pay our teachers what they're asking and be able to bring in that competitive new teacher. And I know everyone's struggling for teachers, but like then we can have some fight to say, listen, this is what we have to offer. And again, to build up our schools, alleviate that PEPAL fund by getting a general bond, alleviate the PEPAL fund, which again helps us improve our buildings, which makes us appealing to our neighboring schools to be able to bring in those teachers and that education and the students even to increase the numbers of our enrollment to, thanks.
This is kind of just a pie chart of where the assessment came, where the total, that $484 million, where that kind of comes from. 37.1.
This is all on your program.
That's true. That's farm ground basically. The purple is residential, 14.9, commercial is 3.6. The big one here, which we kind of want to highlight, is the industrial, which is primarily windmills. So when we're talking about all of this, if you look back 10, 15 years ago, the tax evaluation of the district was probably in the, I don't know what it is exactly, don't quote me, but let's say $250 million. You start adding windmills to this, it all assessed at $3.5 million a piece. Our tax evaluation has jumped dramatically. So you're almost, it's say we vote for this and we approve a debt service, the windmills are paying 40% of this bill, essentially.
Well, and then the 30, this big chunk here is windmills basically, and then the other straight up the line, this half is other sources. So 50% of our value is coming from outside sources. This is our residential and then that's the ag land, but we're we benefit so much from those wind turbines at this point that
Right.
super positive.
Excuse me. Are we actually at this point getting the funds from them, or are they still with the TIF and
You're getting some funds, so yeah, there's TIF money coming out of it for
so
ones
is
that the
the
city.
40% that they're paying now at the current rate?
Well, that's not 40% they're paying, it's 40%, that's what makes up the
Right,
total valuation.
right, I got that, but is that 40% as it is today, or that's after the TIF money and
I think they've all been up long enough, they're all getting 100%.
The debt service levies are protected from TIF. So if we're talking about the 270 or the 405, the PEPAL, the instructional support levy, those are all considered protected. So they stay with the school district and do not go with TIF. The TIF is a little bit less than the total tax rate. So when we're talking about debt service, we're talking about PEPAL, when we're talking instructional support levy, they keep the TIF. So that 40% is based, that's the mix of the current fiscal year property taxes by class. That's based on valuations right now. Now the general fund for the school district excludes TIF, but the debt service numbers, the 270, the 405 we're talking about include anything that's in TIF. And debt service is protected for city, for county, for everybody, and the school district as well. And the school district gets an additional protected levies, which are the PEPAL and the instructional support levy.
Okay, so I think everybody's got a copy of kind of this slide here. So this is kind of nuts and bolts. What is it going to cost you if this all goes through? So each of you as a landowner, property owner, whatever it may be. So I kind of went through this on my own, my house, my farm, our farm. So there's first thing you got to figure out here is these numbers on the left here. There's three different numbers. There's market value, what you think your house is worth. There's assessed value, and then there's taxable value. So this taxable value, usually with residential and commercial, what shows on your taxes, your assessed value is fairly close to market value. Farm ground's a little bit different. It doesn't quite transfer that way. But so I looked at my house. Okay, so I looked today. My house is assessed at $195,710. The taxable value of that house after the rollback, after the 56% rollback, is $95,311. So to me, that's about the same as $100,000. So for me, my taxable value is $100,000. If we vote for a 270-11, my taxes are going to go up $152 on my house per year. If we vote for the 405, they're going to go up $228. So $112 per house, basically. Come down commercial, like I said, commercial assessed value, commercial market value is usually not that far off. It's usually pretty close. So the same math applies there on a commercial building. Ag land down here is a little bit different because it's not assessed at market value. So we updated these numbers to the right here today or yesterday. So the average assessed value per acre of land in Cass County is $1,580. It's probably worth on the market more than that. I would say almost all of it. It's probably worth 5 times that in the market. But as far as how the county assesses it, it's $1,580.52. So then you take the 84% rollback. So the average taxable value per acre is $1,328. And then the third bullet there is the average retail value, which we market is $6,882. So basically, if you take that average taxable value per acre times the 270 per acre, and as of these figures today, on the 270 levy, your taxes would go up $3.69 per acre. If it was the 405, it would be $538. Now, if you have better than average land, it's going to be a little higher than that. If you have pasture or timber or whatever it might be, it's going to be a bit less than that. So then they just did the math for 100 acres, 500 acres, 1,000 acres. One thing I'll also mention, back to the windmills, they're in the commercial industrial. Those windmills are assessed, at least the ones I looked at $3.5 million a piece. Their taxable valuation, their taxable value was $985,000. So if you follow the bottom line there, the $1 million commercial industrial cost, each one of those windmills is going to generate either $2,430 or $3,645 approximately every year. And there's, I don't know how many there are in the county or in this district. 135. So that's where we're getting back to that 40% of the evaluation is in windmills. That's a huge bang for your buck. It doesn't cost us anything. So anyway.
This slide shows the general fund through the fiscal year. So back in 12, you can see it was 11 million, or yeah, 11 million. You can see it's dropped, but you go over to the total levy rate, the levy rate is increased. It's a little different than our slide.
I think the chart shows that it's just important to show like how well the district's done in keeping our debt down.
Officially no debt, there's no debt levies to worry about, there's no, we've had it pretty good, really.
Yeah, the chart's the total tax rate. Yeah, that's the total tax rate in the chart.
Yep. So this is kind of a snapshot of, I guess, mostly neighboring school districts, and what they have done. Cam's levy rate is obviously very low because we don't have any debt. There's no debt service levy sitting out there, so the 1050 is where we're at. The other side of this, our debt levy is also low because our taxable valuation is so high. We have the third highest tax valuation of everything on here and the third lowest tax rate. So again, windmills is the majority of that number. So if we would vote for a 405, that's going to jump our taxable rate from 1050 up to 1455, give or take. So we'll be obviously be closer to the top then. But it's still doable based on the numbers.
I do have one question over here. I know the answer, but I'm going to ask the question. You have a general obligation bond and it is passed. How long does it last? Like a voted PEPL would go for 10 years. How long does the general obligation bond go? It has to be paid for over a course of 20 years. 20 years, yeah. It could be paid off a little earlier, depending on the callable date, and property assessed values will go up and then collect taxes to do that, or they can choose not to collect the taxes and pay the general obligation bond out over the 20 years.
And I would say that would be the plan. I mean, I think we haven't had any detailed conversation, but I don't, if everything went right, like we thought, the enrollment stayed approximately the same, where went up, what have you, I don't think there's anybody that really thinks it would ever go 20 years. But there's 100 different things that could happen in that time period too.
Yeah. Two different elections for the two different amounts. If they both pass.
Same election, there's two questions on the ballot.
Same election, the two questions. If one were to pass and not the other, we'd only have like $20 million. But if they both pass, so the process, do we plan on what we want, and then we got to see if we get the money. So if we were planning for $27 million of improvement, but unfortunately that didn't pass, so we just have to rework it and see what we can do for 20 million.
That's the way I understand it. The facilities committee would have to revisit and come back to the drawing board. If nothing passes,
well, then it doesn't matter.
Then we're going to figure out how we're going to fix the facilities we have.
Yeah.
They're going to need it fixing, and the general fund can't sustain the fixing. That's.
And the two questions will be a dollar amount of bonds, and do you pass up to a 405? So if you pass $30 million, $27 million, but you don't pass a 405, then you can't issue all the 27, but you would have authority to issue what you can within the 270, if that makes sense.
How often, if ever, does anybody for less than 20 years on the field?
For school districts, because the average life of a school building is more than 20 years. Most schools do 20 years to maintain maximum flexibility. And at 8 years, you have the ability to restructure, prepay, refund, do whatever. But all the school districts I work with do 20 years.
The other side of it is,
but she's also talking restructuring.
Yeah, within 8
This
years.
environment with very low interest
Very
rates. You know, say you started this thing out at 5%, you're down to 1%, you're going to restructure and save interest and possibly, and I would say probably, pay it off for, you know, take the savings and put it towards, you know, excess debt levy service is what they call that. And then you pay the bond off by the callable date or shortly after the
Yeah, you can pay cash or you can issue new bonds at a lower interest rate. The other thing I wanted to say that's very important is the 270 and the 405. Those are the maximum tax impacts. That's not necessarily saying automatically the district's total tax rate is going to go up $4.05 every single year. That's a budget decision the school board will make year by year. And the GO bonds can be paid with save revenues. So if there isn't a need to use save revenues, that could be used to pay GO debt service and not levy a tax. But that's a year by year budget decision that the school board have the flexibility to determine based on the current needs of the district in that budget year.
Is the taxable rollback variable, will it ever change? Is it on a 10-year, 5-year, 1 year?
Changes every year.
Changes every year.
Every year it's recalculated.
So
Ag land and residential are changed every year. Commercial industrial are statutorily set at 90%. So it's residential and ag that change every year. And if you own multi-residential property, that will soon be equal to residential. That's declining. And then I think in 23, that'll be equal to residential. So anybody that owns multi-residential property, that will be equivalent to residential property very soon. And that gets recalculated every year.
Have you seen it change very much?
Yes. Yes. Ag land rollback used to be closer to 50%, and it's now over 80%, pushing 90%. And the residential rollback has declined. It fluctuates, but can go anywhere from 52 to 57. So it was rising as well, but it's starting to decline. So it does get reevaluated. And all you need to know is that statewide, the growth is capped at 3% for residential and ag property together. They're combined. So the faster residential and ag property grows statewide, the lower those rollbacks go. So.
Any other questions?
Has the question been asked how we got here as far as our facilities? Why are we in this position?
Multiple times.
Well, yeah, I mean,
And if I missed that, sorry.
No, he means within the
It's a
meeting.
question everybody probably wants to know or an answer.
I would say-
Give me an explanation.
part of that is, before these windmills all came online, you didn't have any more money to do it then either. I mean, your tax evaluation was half of what it is now. So therefore, you had less money coming in. And I mean, yeah, buildings are 40 plus years old. I mean, at some point, I look at it as, okay, when do you quit repairing your car and buy a new one? It's like, we're kind of to that point. That's why we're meeting. It's like, you can fix it, but eventually you gotta buy a new one.
The roofs are to that point, and the point was made last week at the meeting, like the air conditioning systems. Shane Smith, he said, there's parts you can't get for one.
the elementary school down here, the HVAC replaced now.
So now you're spending $5,000 or $10,000. If that happens on multiple units, that's how it starts adding up so fast.
3 buildings to repair on one budget.
But yeah, these buildings are 40. The elementary up there is 70.
I didn't know that they had they have tons of holes in their roofs and they're all walking around buckets. And I don't think a lot of people knew that. I didn't know that. My kids are new into school. They're preschool, first grade. And I had no idea that they were walking around. And I mean, it's Bruce Leak
But you're funneling a fairly substantial amount of capital into other than maintaining a building. And I realize that protects the general budget, but yet the PEPAL was put in place to repair our building.
and
So we've kind of changed priorities here.
Well, they're still doing that.
it's
But
grounds
it's
and
costing more than what they're getting.
fields. I mean, it's facility. It's all the facility too. Yeah.
But I guess my question is, why haven't we been replacing these roofs with them?
I'm not gonna make the answer for that for sure, but what I gathered is they use that money to retain teachers, be competitive with local districts.
Not the Pebble money does not
No,
pay
not
our
Pebble,
teachers.
but
The transfer, instead of using general fund, using PEPAL,
Yeah.
you're saying
That's
if that's correct.
They want to know where most of the couple money is going if it's not used to repair the building.
I'd say you got a sheet there, you can scroll back, you guys have what we spent on expenditures versus revenue. Right now.
but, no, I guess you're.
But you are doing, you're doing maintenance on.
My question is, and funneling money off from the PEPAL to substantially save our general budget.
Such as buses and.
Like the copier lease is a couple expense.
Okay, so why haven't we been putting back into buildings and things like that? I understand saving the general budget is important and trying to, if we're utilizing the general budget to entice teachers and hire better teachers and stuff like that, I kind of get it, but the purpose of PEPAL is really I'm kind of a little confused on why we took the trash. Well, we should pay this stuff and not do the heating and air conditioning.
We've been maintaining the heating and air conditioning. We've been fixing the heating and air conditioning. I don't know, Ken, you can help me in the last 2 years, how many rooftops we've replaced. I know we did one in North Elementary when I first got here, a unit. Well, they've been replaced as they fail. $5,000 to $10,000 at a shop is what we're doing. The problem is they're older repairs is what I'm saying. They're not as efficient. And I'll say you're spending it as you go, and eventually the thing will fail completely. Where we're at right now is parts aren't for those items anymore.
And I understand.
And so then now are you going to do a more efficient?
I understand why we put a new one in.
New unit or new unit
and everything. And if we're getting $800,000 worth of PEPAL per year, in 10 years, that's $8 million worth of this. And it appears to me that we're funneling a lot of items that have to be done. But I just want to get in my head that the reason we're doing that, funneling this PEPAL money and everything, is to increase teacher pay and try to maintain that. Is that correct?
That helps, yes, because if we put in a newer, more efficient mechanical system, I'll just name it, the one that I'm used to and done prior to being in this school district, is a variable refrigerated flow system, okay? And that's where you get high efficiency. It's probably the most efficient way to heat and cool a building. You chase the heat around the rooms and you move it, okay? And you can do it with geothermal, you can do it without.
Right.
But then you will cheapen up your utilities, which saves money in the general fund, which then you can spend on salaries.
The final answer on that is whether we have jockeyed that money around, which is fine, if that's what was necessary. And have we increased teacher salary because we've been doing that, or we've just been jockeying things around because
we've increased salaries. I mean, package increases last year were 2.5%.
Okay, that's all I wanted to do.
There you go. And I will tell you when I walked in, anything we could cut that didn't impact program got cut, i.e. transportation director. That's a general fund expense. Okay. You look at things, and we'll talk about some of these things tonight. We have 3 building principals. A school district this size typically does not have 3 building principals. But for the educational process, they felt at the time it was done before I came here, I'll just say people wanted to keep the educational process the quality of it for our students. It is a good thing if you can afford to have 3 building principals. Okay, it's not typical of a school district this size. Okay, those are general fund expenses, but we've cut those things. Same thing with copiers. When you bought a ream of paper, and you guys can all go do that, but buy it by the boxes and the pallets, and you get that out of a different fund, that frees up about $5,000 a year. Now that's not raises, but that helps. All those dollars start adding up over time. So there's savings to the general fund through facilities, not program. Educating the kids is program, but if we can do facility savings and utilities and things like that, general fund savings, we can do those things and still be beginning to put raises on. When we have a drop of, and I can tell you it's one of my hits, 14 kids. Certified enrollment on one of those pages went down about 14 kids. Take 14 times $7,000 and you're about $84,000. And I'm just rounding things off because it's 7247 is the actual cost of the district, cost per pupil next year. But just use those numbers. We had no new money this year. In other words, we operate our school district this year on what we had last year and we gave 2.5 raises. We increased 80% of our budget, 2.5%, and no new money. How do we do that, people? We cut someplace else that's not in staff.
But the leases and those things have proven to be cheaper or a savings, not just a jockey from Apple to save the general.
Right. You know, a brand new lease fleet, 10 buses, it'd be 9 or 8. We'll do the math and figure out how many we actually need. But I can tell you 10 because I've done it before in a school district. $135,000 out of the general fund. They're bigger engines, all the depth, all the good safety things on them, but they run about 7 miles a gallon on diesel versus 3 to 5. So you're saving in the diesel fuel. That adds up over time in a school district. So that's a general fund of savings. That's the conversation we're having tonight is where do those dollars come from and how? The other one to answer is how do we get where we're at with our facilities? Anything in Iowa the last 25 years, whether it's concrete to roofs to siding to windows, you'll be lucky. But these are 50, 47, 48-year-old buildings and their systems were put in long before that, some of them. And those systems are not, now we're getting to the point where it's cheaper to replace them than constantly repair them. You know, you look at things that are frazzled floors, these things will last a long, long time. But you take a window, the efficiency of that window might be 15 to 25 years. And then it's wore out. Weather gets to it, it just can't handle it. So we got to do some things with our facilities, and they're amazing. It's how do you want to do things? And I will say the board, when I came here, had the foresight to say, let's get our community involved, and let's look at our future, and let's look at our facilities as they go into the future. This is just the new guy that's been here about 2 years that knows the numbers and how they get there to help you. But I will tell you, from my perspective, this community is way involved. 180 people every meeting. Great questions. How do we get there? You know the why tonight. Keep asking them. If we don't get them answered quite right, because we're not on the same thought process, you got my cell phone number. Call me. Make sure we understand the question so we can find the accurate answer.
One thing to address your point, Dwayne, on the couple money, 2 things. The wind turbines take 6 years to come online before they reach full evaluation. And I can't tell you how long they've been here, but so the PEPL dollars did not reach that amount till recently. And the second thing on the building, a lot of things Paul's talking about are kind of small pieces of the PEPL, but things that have been done, you know, the copiers, it's not a huge thing compared to the dollars that PEPL generates. Originally, we spent the PEPL dollars on the new multi-purpose room in Anita. So they were spent on buildings. Same thing with the new addition on the south end here that has preschool in the vocal. And those were things that were done without raising the tax rate because we used those PEPL dollars to do those things. Not near as big a project as 20 or 30 million. But Paul's a little bit at disadvantage because, as he stated, he's only been here a couple of years, so he wasn't involved in those processes. The other thing on saving PEPL, all the technology, the one-to-one computers, that's taken that huge amount of money over time. And we have delayed that. We're probably due for new computers, that we delayed that and let that PEPL fund build up a little bit. So that's been the uses of the PEPL. So the bulk of it has been spent on buildings, a little bit on copiers and paper and leases. Does that answer what you wanted to know?
$150,000 a year that's been on copiers and bus leases and stuff like that, or did I not understand the numbers correctly?
150,000 total, the 5-year lease.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. All right, great.
That get it?
$1,200 bill a year, a month. About a $1,200 bill a month, if there's no anything on top.
And sometimes to answer your question, we have had to make decisions. Sometimes it might be a little bit higher to do a lease than to own it. But it was a huge advantage to not have tie up those general fund dollars. Because we get that for
utilizing couple money in ways just to jockey the fund and we're not saving anything, we're just paying for it out of Pepperell, that's cool, but the general fund, I mean, we're just jockeying is what I was worried about.
And we do some of that jockeying and have done. As Paul mentioned, when you look at state aid going up from 2 to 3% or 1 to 3%, and if you look at the cost of doing business being probably 4 to 6%, you've had to make some changes just to make your budget match. So there is some of that goes on. I mean, just part of staying alive, really.
As we move on to the presentation, I think you'll start to see that answering the questions of why we're here as we go through the facilities, the existing facilities, there's starting to be a long list of items and how you prioritize those, or as you get into replacing 1 or 2 heating and cooling units, you know, what the school board I think has had the foresight to say, okay, we need a big picture here so that we're not spending $10 to save $5, or if we're going to be up in the ceilings for heating and cooling, what are the electrical needs that need to be done at that time? Or if it's a bigger heating and cooling project, the state fire marshal is going to come in and say, time to add fire sprinklers to your building. So all of those things start to build on top of each other. You have accessibility issues that need to be added into that once you get to a certain level of improvement in your school. So I think you're going to see all that here in just a minute to help understand why we're here. And if you're going to spend $1 million, how do you turn that into a $2 million piece just by thinking a little bit more long-term about your facilities needs and your facilities improvements?
Has there been any input from the turbine companies about this tax increase? Is there going to be seen it considerably higher?
They don't get a vote.
They don't get a vote. They're just going to pay the difference.
But they're gonna pass that on. Where's that gonna go?
It's not free. Electricity, granted, we don't use the electricity directly from the turbine. But our REC board purchased the electricity on the grid. Nothing's free.
True.
So what happens if they just decide to let go of the windmill project? They're done out, full out.
That's what I was thinking.
Exactly,
That's what I was wondering.
but it could happen.
Well,
They were sitting on $3 million that we're really hoping we're gonna get this tax money for, and then poof, it's gone. Where would that leave us? It's like we're, getting windmills, this is gonna help our community, this is gonna build our school. Do we have a backup plan if we lose that?
I don't think we're gonna pull out, because it's like my windmill contract, 4 years, and it's locked in. If you had to get a lawyer, fight it, go about it, but 137 windows, a lot of money they're gonna shell out and fight.
How much money they're spending to repair one, and, you know, people look around and they're spending hundreds of thousands to do minimal maintenance, so they're pretty bad.
All right, we're going to keep moving on here. We'll have time for more questions. Questions here at the end, but I'm going to just add on a little bit to that financial presentation here when it comes to costs, facilities improvements. This is a chart we put together that shows escalation in construction costs, very similar to what Gary is talking about with your consumer price index, your cost of inflation versus what the school is the state is giving you in aid. You can see that a $20 million project in 2019 was $14.6 million in 2011 and will be $24.8 million in 2025. So you can see that that number is going up. It's never going to get cheaper to build. It is always going to get more expensive. And our experience with school districts is, you know, you have that $20 million, that's $20 million now. That's if the vote doesn't pass, that's $20 million in 2 years. If it does pass, it's just what you get for that $20 million is less. As was discussed a little bit, your newest facility is 42 years old. Yes, you've got your addition over here with the kindergarten, and you've got your multi-purpose room up at the Anita Elementary, but 42 years old. Your optimum square footage, if we take 500 students and 200 square feet per student, that's 100,000 square feet. You have 139,000 square feet, or almost 40% more than what you need in your district right now. That's 40% more in heating and cooling, custodial, and ongoing maintenance and repairs. In addition to that, any newer mechanical and HVAC systems will save you 20 to 30% on annual costs. 3 buildings means additional staff for administration, office, custodial, food service, and maintenance personnel. Multiple sites means less efficiency with teachers, paras, and staff. Something else with your CTE building being detached from your high school. CTE is career technical education, industrial arts, shop class, things like that. If I throw out a 3-letter acronym and I don't explain it, please holler at me. What does that mean? Because I do get into the acronyms and I don't always explain those. But so if you have students who spend 20 minutes 3 times a week or 60 minutes total per week traveling to and from a building, they've lost just under 170 hours of educational time in their high school career. And that's related to having that facility not right there at your high school. This chart also shows you current building costs, materials costs. So you can see on the left is August of 20, and we're at the end of July here, 21. Building costs spiked tremendously there for a while. They're starting to go back down. They'll probably never get all the way back down to where they were, but this also relates to the cost of construction chart that I showed you there at the beginning. So where are we now? Kind of the review of what we've done with the existing facilities analysis. So we've walked through all of the facilities. We've done drone scans of all of the facilities. We've done 3D scanning on the interior. We've talked with your facilities and your maintenance guys and the people who are in the buildings every single day about what are the issues, what's going on, what are the long-term things that can't be fixed. At the CAM building here for the elementary and the middle school, built in 1964, several deferred maintenance issues. We do have good finishes that are well maintained. There's some site circulation and safety concerns. All of the buildings have entries that are not secure. You walk into the building before you get to the office. There's some things that are not safety and security issues as far as entry into the building. We've got a lot of major water issues, particularly on the southwest area of the gym. There's a lot of brick spalling concerns. We have some ADA accessibility issues, handicap accessibility issues. There's no FEMA storm shelter. That's one of those things that if you start repairing heating and cooling and electrical, and as those dollars get up, the state fire marshal is going to come in and say, you know, you need to do all of this and bring all of this up to code. And a FEMA storm shelter is one of those things that needs to be thought about also in your schools. There's no fire sprinklers. Your electrical service is past its useful life. There's no temperature control system. The fire alarm is adequate. We do need some new devices, but it is also starting to get to an age where those parts are going to be not available on the main market. You're going to have to start going to the secondary market to get that. There's no ventilation in the corridors. We don't meet the energy code for lighting. We do not meet meet the building code for emergency egress and exit lighting. A number of those kind of things through the facilities here. Those are some of the bullet points as we walked through. We also score these buildings. on these 4 categories: site analysis, exterior, interior, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, technology, and then the individual pieces there. So you can see total, the score out of 10 for this building is a 4.3. And I'm going to plot that on a chart here so you can see what that means big picture wise in a minute. Your elementary building to the north, built in 1957 with the 2016 edition. There's a lot of deferred maintenance issues. You're maintaining what you can with a lot of outdated items, outdated finishes. There's site circulation and safety concerns, multiple roof leaks. That roof is beyond its final years. We do have a lot of natural light in the buildings, which is good. There are ADA and handicap accessibility improvements needed throughout the facility. It needs better ventilation. There's no FEMA storm shelter. The secure entry is not there. The heating and cooling is past its useful life. We saw a mix of piping issues with galvanized copper piping systems. There's no temperature control. Clock and paging system does not work well. Egress lighting does not meet code, the energy code for the lighting. There's no ground fault protection at the main panel. A lot of things, right? So you start looking at those lists of, wow, there's a lot of things here. We can continue to get by, but at some point we're gonna have to fix it. And do we fix it? Is that we're gonna spend $10 to save $5, or do we look at something bigger picture wise and how we can make this a better project and a better facility for everyone? That elementary north building is not really worth spending any money on. And you'll see that here in the options that we have moving forward. There is enough there that is wrong, that needs fixed, that you're better off starting from scratch on that particular building. And I do not say that very often. My firm prides itself on being renovation and rehab experts. And we make a lot of things work, but that is one that is just really, I would not recommend that from a dollar standpoint. You can see where it scores again on the 4 categories, a 3.8 for that building based on this information here. The high school building, again, built in 1977. That is your newest facility. It is fairly well maintained. There's not a lot of deferred maintenance issues. We've got some good finishes, but they're a little outdated. There's a few roofing areas that need to be addressed, including some roof drains. There's a lot of temporary partitions, and those are not ideal for classrooms. There's certainly handicap accessibility, again, in all of your facilities. There's some humidity issues, need of better ventilation, no FEMA storm shelter. Locker rooms are outdated. Gang showers are just not something that you see in schools anymore. Safety and security. There's not individual shower stalls. Your heating and cooling is past its useful life. There's a water conditioning issue. We saw a lot of dielectric fitting concerns where there's corrosion in those pieces. There's no temperature control. Fire alarm does not meet current codes. There's a lot of abandoned cabling above the ceiling, which is a fire hazard. Lighting doesn't meet energy code. And there's no ground fault protection at the electrical panels. You can see as we start to look at all of these things and we go through the focus groups and we listen to what everybody wants and their needs are, this is where the building scores. We also looked at the athletic facilities. You need a ton of sidewalks everywhere. You don't meet any accessibility codes as far as access to your athletic facilities. You need more parking. Student athlete access to locker rooms. There's no public restrooms, particularly up at the baseball and the softball fields for access. A cinder track is not to the standard, even for a smaller school district. We just don't see those very often. The field lighting is adequate. There's some suggestions possibly on upgrades for there. There's no handicap seating in your bleachers for softball and baseball. Those are the kind of things we saw on the athletic fields, and we just did the Anita facility. Those score at a 5.7. So this is the chart as we plot it out from a 0 to 10, and you can see where your facilities fall in that. A 10 is basically a brand new facility within the past 5 years. right around the number, the 5 there, you have buildings with end of life on their mechanical systems. They're not accessible. They don't meet handicap codes. You're needing new roofs. There's life safety issues. That's with your ground fault protection, your fire alarm, your fire sprinkler systems. You've got some okay finishes. There's some other code compliance issues. So quite honestly, based on that number I said at the beginning, where your newest facility is 42 years old, this is about exactly where we would expect this to score based on all the other school districts we've worked with throughout Southwest Iowa and Nebraska. So it's nothing to jump up and down and worry about. It's just purely the buildings, the age of the life of the building and where you're at, and it's time to do something about it. We also do a square footage analysis. So I've showed this chart a number of times. I did the information earlier about how you had approximately 39 to 40% extra square footage. This starts to break it down by building. So here at the elementary and middle school, you have a building with a capacity of 273. You have 226 students here. Your elementary building, you have at Anita, you have 120 students there and a capacity of 161. Your high school is the one that really starts to jump out. You have a capacity of 261 students with only 147 attending. You can also see we broke that out by grade, by location. There's a couple of things that you can see then that also start to point out to some inefficiencies. Now, this isn't criticizing your school district, your teachers or anything. It's just the way you do things. But for example, in the 3rd grade, you had 24 students in a classroom down here, and you had 8 students in a classroom at your North Elementary building. That is not a balanced classroom setup. Ideally, you would have all of your elementary kids and all of your teachers and all of the paras for your elementary all in one site and one location to maximize the education of those students and the resources available to them. We've talked through these meetings. We've done community surveys at almost every one of these meetings. We started asking, where are the participants from? I had a couple of questions on that even recently. The last community meeting we did had the 6 focus groups. We did not ask where people are from when they responded to that. But this is for the previous surveys. So we've done community surveys, a staff survey, parents survey, and student survey. And you can see based on the breakout where everyone is answering that they are from. We ask questions related to goals and priorities, balancing aspirations. You can see first up there is retain quality staffing. Second, high quality education while maintaining a small rural school feel. Third, update current buildings and prepare for future growth. When we talk about managing concerns, it's recruitment and retention of top teachers, fix current issues versus preparing for future concerns, and the financial ability to maintain a quality education. This chart starts to compare answers on solutions from the previous community meetings, student surveys, parent surveys, and why we are to this meeting tonight and how we are going to run our survey at the end of this meeting. There is not an overwhelming consensus yet on any particular option that's been presented for us to be able to direct that and say, based on the input and based on the facts in the meetings that we are presenting, we are not getting a consensus on which direction to move forward with. So you can see in the community survey how the bars are there with the renovating all schools, relocating the elementary all to the south here, or relocating all schools to the high school. The same goes with the teacher survey, the student survey, and the parent survey, that there's not an overwhelming option or idea that we've presented that is starting to lead the pack to move those discussions forward. Again, when we ask which idea to be eliminated, you can see on the community survey, possibly the relocate all schools to the Anita building, that's starting to trend higher. But when you go to the teacher and staff survey, I think teachers and staff start to understand the benefits of everybody being together under one building, one roof, shared resources, all of those pieces. So maybe that's why that one doesn't reflect the same way as the community survey. On the student survey, they want to get rid of renovate all schools, but they want to keep renovate all schools. So the students are a little confused on which option they want to move forward with their two. And then on the parent survey, again, you can see the trends there as far as the way these surveys have gone. As I mentioned, we've gone through all of these 7 focus groups. There's a number of things that came out of those that we've started to then apply towards priorities, or as we've started to think about, rethink about the dollars and budgets and how we can best make these different ideas work for the school district. What makes an effective STEAM and CTE program? So STEAM, science, technology, engineering, arts, math. CTE, career technical education. Teachers, facilities, space, and programs. What's on the wish list for STEAM and CTE? Certification opportunities, business partnerships. What are your top 3 needs? Instructors, maker space, flexible space. And what are the goals? Improving the physical space or the environment. Need more money for equipment and more space. Technology, furniture, and instructors. As far as the information technology focus group, what are the current issues in the schools? Need to improve peer-to-peer learning. I can tell you as a parent, I used to think I was pretty good at technology until my kids started getting a little bit older, and they just school me all day long on things related to phones and iPads and laptops and presentations and all of that. Students learn peer-to-peer way faster than they learn from an instructor or a teacher or a dedicated technology guy telling them how to put a presentation together. Your whiteboards are dated and they don't always work. Is technology being used to its fullest potential? It is not being used to its fullest potential. Oftentimes we hear of schools that they've done a great job of getting a one-to-one technology program implemented, but maybe they haven't taken that far enough as far as what they're actually using those laptops or iPads for in the classroom. What are your top 3 needs related to technology? More support staff. How would that be paid for? Probably out of the general fund. We need to train parents and kids on how to better utilize the technology, and then updating classroom technology and power sources. The learning environments focus group. What currently works and what doesn't work. The new gym at the North Elementary allows for more programs. They've always made what they had work, and that's a great testimony to the teachers you have, to the educators, to the administration, and everybody there. The whiteboard active boards in the elementary are working well. What doesn't work? Those active boards, rooms are too small. Science is outdated. There's a lot of code issues related to that. Room scheduling, especially during testing. Shared teachers doesn't work. Aspirations, more functional furniture. Sizes appropriate for all levels, flexible seatings. We do have an opportunity with some of our other partners. We can bring in a couple of classrooms worth of different types of furniture, let students test them out, let the teachers provide feedback on what that furniture is before you ever have to buy any furniture. So that's something we may want to take care of there. What are your top 3 needs related to learning environments? More money, space and flexibility, flexible furniture, and more technology support. Community pride focus group. Community and school go together. The brand shows pride, place that brand everywhere. There's currently nothing in the elementary buildings showing CAM. Would love a marquee, signage for the school. Do you think a CAM first approach, again, I mentioned that at the beginning of the meeting, is correct for creating and maintaining community pride in the schools? Yes, community is key. Communication between community and the schools is important. More welcoming entrances into your schools. What are your top 3 concerns related to community pride in the schools? There's still some friction between communities, and this talk may be adding to that friction. We certainly want anything that comes out of this from a facilities project to be something that is more unifying for your communities and for your school. That's that CAM first approach. There's not enough pride visible or discussed in communication. We did an athletics and activities focus group. What works well, what does not. Communication for schedules. This is what works. Students work together well. The baseball and the softball fields work. The closeness of gyms for smaller kids. What doesn't work? Scheduling is a nightmare. Gym flooring isn't wood in the wellness center or in the elementary. The track, there's no restrooms at the baseball and softball complex. There's no auditorium. You need better acoustics. ADA compliance at the baseball and softball fields and locker rooms are horrible. Are there any logistical or timing issues with the current arrangements? Coaches and shared teachers are not in the same building. It's getting harder to find coaches. Transporting junior high kids to practices and events is something that needs to be improved. Parking at this facility and finding drivers. What are your top 3 needs related to athletics and activities? Track, auditorium, weight room, and accessibility in bathrooms. We did a behind the scenes focus group. This was to talk about a lot of the things administrative, food service, transportation, daycare. What works well? Maintenance. The buildings are clean and kept up as much as they can. Food service does well with what they have. Transportation, everybody thought pickup and drop off was done well. Buses in Messina are ready to go instead of wasting time. Administration, principals in each building. That is key. The way you have the different buildings, that works well for your school. Nurse's office is present in every building. Counseling, whole group elementary, and you have a daycare. What does not? Generally, you feel understaffed and not having enough space. Need newer equipment, need daycare for all of the communities. What are the top 3 needs related to the behind the scenes operations? Daycare or childcare, staffing, and retaining quality teachers. Again, there's that retain quality teachers piece. Other things for consideration and thought, bus barn, transportation facility, maintenance, and storage. And lastly, we did the financial focus group last week. What are the top 5 financial items that you feel are the most important for discussion? Use of special funds to protect the general fund. So we talked about that a little bit earlier. What is the tax burden? What is the tax increase? What are we getting for that? And then the cost. What is the one thing or single topic that will divide support? Location, the taxes, and kind of the where and how you spend the money. What are the 5 items that needed additional information? And we talked about these, and hopefully some of that came out here tonight. Transparency, specific info to the bond. CAM first approach, something for each town. The financial costs of waiting, the current physical conditions of the facilities. If you haven't been through all the facilities, I'm sure that you could get a tour about any time, and that we should set up some tours. So if you haven't seen the elementary building in Anita lately, that's something that you should go check out. Walk around here tonight. Check out the facility here tonight. All right, I'm going to talk about the ideas. So we're going to roll through all of these ideas. I'm going to explain where we're at, scope. I'm going to explain for basis of cost information, what some of that includes to try and make things equal amongst everybody's minds when we're talking about renovations, new construction, and what these 4 ideas are. Then we're going to ask you to get out your smartphones or whatever you have and participate in some surveys. I'll bring these ideas back up because I know that you're going to want time to digest what we're going to see now. And then you may want to see it again as we're asking you to respond to these surveys. So idea A, this is students remaining in all of the existing facilities or locations. So again, the Anita Elementary, that is a new building there in this scenario, not renovating that building. We renovate and update the existing high school in Anita. That's a 9-12 building. You renovate and update the existing CAM South here in Messina. That's your pre-K through 8. We give consideration for a childcare area in any renovations. So that's we need a daycare kind of discussion. How do we incorporate some sort of childcare room? Again, if you've been to these presentations, the school doesn't provide daycare. They legally cannot do that. But there are maybe opportunities where if there are some rooms that we can take and repurpose, that there's an outside organization that can come in and run that childcare component and meet that need of the community. We'd build a new North Elementary building in Anita. And again, consideration for a childcare area there. There'd be athletic field updates in Anita only, and then CTE updates or an addition at Anita. So I'm going to read some of this stuff on the bottom here. So when we talk about renovations, what we're considering in these prices to help you understand that. So when we say renovate and update, that means a complete renovation, including all heating and cooling systems, all plumbing, all restrooms and locker rooms, all electrical, power, lighting, telecom. That's your low voltage stuff, your internet access in all of the classrooms. Finishes from the floors, the ceilings, walls, but minimal reconfiguration of classrooms and spaces. So a building like this, we wouldn't be knocking down all of the interior walls and rebuilding them. We'd work with the classrooms where they are, the restrooms where they are, the gym where that's at, those sort of components. We figure $200 a square foot for renovation and $300 a square foot for new construction. Those are all in numbers. So that includes everything from legal fees, architecture fees, site costs, furniture, all of that is lumped into those per square foot numbers when we are using this for this example. We've plugged in an allowance for an alternate for the athletic fields of $5 million. We've plugged in $1 million allowance for the CTE piece that we're showing here. And we have a 10% overall contingency. So those updated costs for 2022, so if that were to start construction next year, that's 26.4 to 35.6 million based on this information right here and the pieces of this that you choose. Some pros and cons of remaining exactly as you are. Pros, no changes means familiarity, comfort for parents and teachers possibly because you're not changing where you're dropping your kid off, work classroom or school you're working at. All buildings are new and completely renovated and modernized. It will feel like CAM. There's no colors or logos, etc., from any pre-consolidation era of the schools. From a con standpoint, your square footage is not maximized. You're still going to be at that 30 to 40% extra square footage. Elementary teachers do not gain any benefit by still being in separate buildings with having an elementary north and an elementary here south. The elementary class sizes remain unbalanced. Again, that third grade example that I showed you previously where you had 8 kids in one location and 24 in another. Your 7th and 8th grades do not benefit from any of the high school offerings. The CTE, the music, art, STEAM, science, video production, athletic facilities. There's redundant staff. Multiple buildings means multiple secretaries, cleaning staff, custodial, all of those pieces that we talked about there a little bit earlier. There are redundant services, food service for each building in each location. There's savings only from the new systems, not from maintaining or maximizing space. And you have multiple sites for maintenance. So what that looks like with what we talked about scope-wise, the existing elementary building in Anita goes away, that's demolished. We build a new elementary building in the same spot. All right, so we're taking advantage of just everything that's there from a services standpoint. You have a major renovation of the existing high school facility there. All of that square footage is touched in that renovation. We do a CTE addition or some sort of improvement to the facility that's offsite. I think we need to get that CTE attached to the high school building. And then we do some field upgrades that are in that list there. There's a lot of concrete, a lot of accessibility, a lot of upgrades that need to happen there. So when you hear me say we've captured $5 million for field upgrades, it's not just football field and track. There's a whole lot of stuff that goes along with that to make up that total budget. Here in Messina, this entire building, all of the square footage of it gets a significant renovation, all new systems as we talked about there. So that's idea A, all right? Yes. Yes, Paul has mentioned that a couple times too, but yes, you would expect these things to last 20 years. There's obviously major events that can happen that can reduce the life of a roof. But when you get to these points and you install new systems, new heating and cooling, new roofs, you can't just put them on and then forget about them. There has to be ongoing maintenance plans that go along with all of that. But your cost is much less when you start with something new that's under warranty versus where you're at now with the age of your facilities. You know, that's just kind of the life of a building. I haven't seen a lifetime roof. Yes.
How do you expect to come in here and bring a community together, tell them that every single facility is terrible, put down an apartment?
It's my job as a consultant.
You're not bringing people together. You're telling us everything is terrible.
I've not told you everything is terrible. I've told you on the score sheet that your buildings are exactly where we would expect to see them based on the age of facilities in your communities. All right, compared to Iowa. I'm just giving you facts. I'm not sitting here telling you, with the exception of your North Elementary building, and I don't think I'm stepping on anybody's toes saying that that building is beyond its useful life. That I'm just giving you facts. You're certainly welcome to go walk through all of the buildings. When we look at complete renovation numbers, it does get to a point where when you're in a building and you're in a facility and you're all above a ceiling, you really need to take care of all of the issues above a ceiling while you have that ceiling open, because you're not able to move these kids, you know, out of classrooms for long periods of time. So we have summer slams as one of the pieces we call it in construction. We'll have to move some kids to temporary classrooms, probably in a gym if you get to renovating, significant renovation of these classrooms. But you don't want to be doing that. You don't want to take out a ceiling, put in new ductwork, and then in 5 years, the state fire marshal comes in and says, it's time to fire sprinkler all your buildings, or we got to run new fire alarm through everything, or we need to run new electrical to bring everything up to the energy code. Those are all things that we're trying to take into account when we look at those complete renovation numbers.
If you replace the North Elementary, what will you do with the students while that's being rebuilt?
There's a number of options there. You have some extra square footage that I think we could move some things around for a year. There's also options for temporary classrooms, and you have a community building there that I would hope that at some point they would let you use that as a part of that. Again, it's for probably about a year's worth of construction, but most everybody that in every school that we work with, they kind of understand the inconveniences that you have to go through for a year of that construction to get to a point where you've got something better and more efficient. Yes. Yes, we will get through these ideas here in a minute, and we'll see. You'll see some of those. Idea B. So this is a 712 at the high school building in Anita, and all pre-K 6 students here at the Cam South building here in Messina. So you renovate and update the existing high school to make that a junior senior high building, grades 7 through 12. There would be a small addition to that for some classrooms, and we would propose potentially a gym addition as an alternate. You renovate and update the existing Cam South building here in Messina. This entire building becomes a pre-K 6 building, all elementary. The Anita Elementary building, the current building is demolished. We keep the existing elementary up there. We would propose that that area is where you would consider some component for childcare in that existing multi-purpose building area. We have athletic field updates at Anita only, and then a CTE update in addition. You're gonna see that on all the slides. Again, when we say renovate and update, that's your complete renovation from floor through the roof. All new systems, all new finishes. It looks like a brand new school. What we're not doing is tearing down walls and reconfiguring classrooms and gym spaces and things like that. We have the allowance for the athletic field, the CTE, a gym, a new gym allowance. And then we have a $500,000 allowance for the North Elementary building abatement. So that's taking care of hazardous, anything that's in the building, lead, asbestos, any of that stuff, and then the demolition and proper disposal of that building. So that is a $20.9 to a $33.9 million cost for next year. Some pros and cons with this idea B. You use existing schools in both towns. All buildings are new and completely renovated, new or completely renovated and modernized. It'll feel like CAM as far as colors and logos from none of that from a pre-consolidation era. It's a better use of existing square footage. The elementary teachers benefit from being together all in one particular facility. Your elementary class sizes can be balanced. There's no more the separation of the schools and 24 kids here and 8 kids there. And your 7th and 8th grade kids, they benefit from the high school programs, music, CTE, art, STEAM, all being together in one facility. It's really great when you can have one great maker space, one great science lab. And for a school district of your size, there's no reason that shouldn't be able to be scheduled and used for 7th grade through 12th grade. The cons, there's still some redundant staff. You have savings from new systems, but it's not completely maximizing space. Again, the only way you're going to completely maximize space is if you've got everybody under one roof. So that's going to show up as a con on every one of these. You still have, if you were all under one roof, you had one office, probably 2 secretaries or reception type people there, that kind of stuff. And you still have multiple sites in different locations for maintenance. So that's the pros and cons here of idea B. So again, what does that look like from a plan standpoint in Anita? The elementary building that's there goes away. You get a significant renovation again of the entire high school building to make that 7-8. We have a CTE addition, a small classroom addition, and then an option for an additional gym. And again, those are square footage blocks that can be moved around. We're not wanting you to vote based on, do you like the gym in that location? Do you like the classroom addition in that location? That's not the point of this. The point is, where's the stuff going to be at? And generally, what's in each option? And then we've got some field upgrades again, as we've mentioned in that scenario. We also have the childcare scenario up in that existing, that newer multi-purpose building. And we do think that that's something that you could possibly incorporate wrestling into. There's a wrestling room here that could move up to that location. In Anita, or in Messina here, again, you get a significant renovation of this entire building. This building becomes your pre-K through 6 all in one space. And we add a childcare component in those renovations. So that's idea B. Yes.
I don't know if you answered this or this is for you, Mr. Kern, but I live close to the northern half of the district, and I would have a child on a bus from there to here. Is there a time limit the amount of, like, that a kid that age can be on a bus? I mean, because you're talking right now, the way the routes run, he would be on the bus half hour to 45 minutes by the time the bus runs its route to get to Anita, and then another 20 minutes to get here.
General rule for any kid would be 60 minutes.
Okay.
You can get variances up to 15 more minutes, so it could be 75.
Okay.
You got shuttles and things like that, changes and things like that.
Okay.
By doing that scenario, how much would that save in personnel costs? And how much more efficient would it be by having the 2 setups like that?
Sure. That's 2 buildings to maintain instead of 3. So we've gotten that per square foot per student a little more efficient there than what we are when we've got the 3 separate buildings. You have 2 buildings worth of entries and secretarial staff in those particular buildings. You have 2 buildings for custodial. You have 2 buildings for food service. You have 2 buildings worth of administration and principals. Paul can speak better to any of those particular savings from staff and what those dollars may be, but you're reducing that. You are reducing that down and becoming more efficient for that.
Like you keep saying, you become more efficient and trying to tell them what I'm going to ask now. I mean, we obviously have a cost of electricity, water, all this other stuff we have. Then, have you guys done a projection of what these buildings per each is going to save that can actually roll back into the cost that will be saving us money? Or is it just we're supposed to take the word on it that, oh, it's so much more efficient? I mean,
sure. Yes.
We know
PTI Engineering, who we mentioned there at the beginning, they've given us some examples of cost savings versus existing utility costs. A lot of your cost savings, you'll see cost savings if you keep 3 buildings and you put all new systems in. That's just flat out the way it is. But you do have more square footage that you're heating and cooling that you do not need. So if we start to reduce some of that, that is where you start to see some additional savings.
I understand that, but what I'm saying is, how come it hasn't been rolled into this presentation also? What you expect to save on heating and cooling and all this on each one of these slides on plan A, plan B, because I mean, if that's a savings, that would go back into the general fund. Or
absolutely.
To pay people, that would be a big incentive one way or another.
It absolutely is.
So do you have a dollar amount that would save approximately?
I don't have a dollar amount on that.
At the last meeting I was at, I was saying to the teachers, and they were saying that their classes weren't big enough, and now you want to take down square footage that they have available.
I'm not changing classroom. I'm not changing classroom sizes.
You're telling us we don't need all this extra square footage we have, but they're saying, the teachers are saying that the rooms aren't big enough now, and they're having trouble finding rooms for kids to study in. And
so it's my job as a consultant to show you all of the pieces of where you're at with your existing building. It's my job as a consultant to show you where you would be at if you were to build a brand new building and where the square footages would put you at. At the end of the day, I don't vote here. I don't live in your community. So that is up to you on how you want to move forward with these pieces. I provide you the facts and the education based on this information, and then you guys as a community make a decision. What you do need to understand, though, is that this is the time that you get to make that decision. Because if your enrollment doesn't increase, or if your enrollment declines, or as you just move through time and the state continues to give you 2% on your student aid, and our cost of living, our consumer price index continues to rise, our inflation, that doesn't balance out. At some point then, your superintendent says it's time to cut. He talked about, he made cuts of any unnecessary things when he came here. They'll start telling you, okay, now's the time to cut a principal. And after you get through cutting all the people and the programs out, what are you going to cut next? Facilities. And you're not going to have a choice in that decision, particularly if you're unspent, your budget number gets to a point where you have to make those decisions. So all I'm trying to do is give you square footage comparisons. If we were going to build you a brand new school, where we'd be at and where we see the ability to save. When we see a high school facility that has a capacity for 270 some students and you've only got 123 attending there, you have more space than you need per student in some of those scenarios.
So the majority of our unused space is in the Anita High School.
That is where the majority of your space is at, yes. Yes.
So why wouldn't the walls be moved around to maximize that space that's already there?
Okay. I mean, yes, some things are gonna move. You've got temporary partitions there that will be fixed. You've got some classrooms that are open that don't work very efficiently. So yes, there are some of those pieces that are gonna move around to maximize that space. You may have more space than you need in a fax classroom, and you can put a wall in there and divide that into 2 classrooms and build your fax or your home economics, whatever you guys call it here. You can put that somewhere else. So yes, there are pieces of that that move around. The big picture that we've got to get to tonight is what is going to be located where. Then we can start talking about what's going to be paid for. And then if you decide to support that, if the school board decides you're going to move forward with a general obligation bond, and if the community decides to support that, then we can get down into the nitty gritty of all the teachers need additional storage, or we need to change this particular classroom and maximize that. The budgets that we've given you have the flexibility to do that, but we can't design every single scenario. And the school board certainly doesn't want to pay us to do that right now until they know what direction the community is going to support.
But it's kind of important to know what the savings are on each option. And maybe that was discussed in another meeting, but along with the 5-year projection on students, it's going to increase, it's going to decrease, because when I was on the school board, we knew that, you got 5 years from kindergarten to birth. You have an idea how many people, how much it's going to increase. And all that, along with the savings, makes a difference on which choice I make.
We should have had you in one of the focus groups then, because we get information on where is it located. That's the #1 thing that people seem to be concerned about, not necessarily what is all the savings. What's that?
We don't do this professionally, though. You do. It'd be nice to have those figures in the schools out here. It'd be nice to have. We can work on.
We'll get you that information. Their estimates.
$100,000 a year, that makes a difference. That can either go to teacher salaries or help on the den load or whatever the case is. And if you've got another 100 students coming, it's $7,000 a student. That makes a difference. Those facts need to factor in. In my opinion, that may mean nothing.
We'll put that information together for you. We will certainly do that. Tonight, I'm asking you to vote based on what we've got here tonight.
That's correct.
Then we can start to create.
Tonight, and then, like you're asking, we'll work on those things as we get more consensus. I mean, you can fine tune that solution and you can get a little bit more focused on what it is, But
the options ever been broken down into each facility or location? Maybe it's already been discussed. Like just doing a renovation at the high school, just doing a whole new elementary building instead of a blanket.
We're past that.
We're past that.
Yeah, sorry.
Well, no, we're past that as a system. Every building in this system needs major work. Okay, I've worked in the building since 1988. And I can tell you that they've done as much as they can to take care of them, and now it's time to take the can down the road going up. So here's the choice. How much input do you want into what you want to do? Or is it going to be like CNN was at the end, when the school board had to make the tough decision to close the Cumberland building? They didn't have a choice. They had to do it. And we're headed that way. It's going to take a while. We're not there yet. But now we have the opportunity. You don't have to do anything. But we're going to have to start spending a lot of money every year to keep these buildings open.
And it could come down to the state comes in at some point and says,
yes,
we have nothing, and they dissolve our district as it is. And I've been a part of this district since I was little. I graduated from ADIS. I want to keep a district in, I want to keep CAM. So we have got to do something. We can't continue doing what we've been doing. It's not working anymore.
There is no more Band-Aid over the problem. You have to renovate buildings. My mother, her father, both worked in the school district. They've been told too many years, put a Band-Aid paid over it. We can't do that anymore. I think it was brought up at one meeting, that they said, what would happen if we didn't do anything, we dissolved the contract that
That question was asked after the last financial meeting, and then I specifically asked it Monday night. You just go ahead and answer.
I'll give you my opinion on it. From a guy that's been through some of these things in former districts and neighboring districts, Farragut dissolved. And they placed the Farragut School District primarily with the Shenandoah School District. The kids open enrolled to the Sydney School District, and they gave nothing to East Mills, the district that I was the superintendent of, about 10 square miles to Fremont Mills, very little to Hamburg, who was the partner of Farragut. So the state will dictate. So if you ask me my opinion today, with the information, what would happen to the CAM school district if it would dissolve today? And we are not even close to that, people. It would be in Cass County, and the big school district would be Atlantic. And you would look at your tax rates, and you would pay the same tax rate that Atlantic is paying today. They have a 405. If you had any debt when it dissolved, you would pay for that as well.
But Paul, take to that. So we dissolve the school, we go to Atlantic, you're not gonna have the choice. Atlantic's going to vote to raise your taxes. Because they're gonna build a building up there, you ain't gonna get the choice. We're right now, we got the choice to do what we gotta do. We got the vote.
Your backs aren't against the wall. I've been in a school district where it was. My superintendency started with a negative $153,000 in spending authority. I grew up as a superintendent that way. No choice. Many people just like this in meetings, listening to me make recommendations to boards, and they say, why can't we do this? You don't have the money to do this or the authority to do this. You are sitting in a financial situation right now where you have a lot of choice and you have some time, and you are very proactive. That's one thing that attracted me to this school district is the proactive part of this school district and educating kids. You have CTE programs that big schools never had. You have digital media that most people can't even fathom how we get kids flying drones and pay for licenses. Those are the things that you have here, people. And you have to just give us direction today to continue this conversation. If you want more information about what it's going to cost, let's focus it. And then we'll get it down to the brass tacks. We are not bashful about cutting an administrator. All 4 administrators have had this conversation privately and flat out talked about it. Which one of us is going to go and who's going to go?
Don't go by size.
Okay. Yeah, that's where you're at. So what Derek's trying to do tonight is we're sitting here limboing where are we at in options already, people. We're trying to get somewhere. What we did hear from the community in the last couple of meetings is we got to do more faster. We got to make a decision. We got to do something. We can't wait. We can't keep slowing down. So that's why we started putting things in July. Okay, let's go to work. We don't care about vacations. We want this to be. This is more important. Our kids are more important than leaving and doing the things. This is tremendous. But that's what we're asking you to do tonight is just look at all the options, listen to what we have. There might be something we haven't brought up. And when that happens, if that's what the majority of people want, then we'll start working on that. Derek does what we ask him to do. That's the bottom line. Okay?
Well, in generality, 3 buildings is more expensive than 2 buildings is more expensive than 1 building. So when you're thinking about the cost of long-term operations, 3 buildings are more expensive than 2 buildings, 2 buildings are more expensive than 1 building. So, and then these are the price tags to do the renovations for those 3 options. So how many buildings do you want? Where do you want? That's what we're trying to get to. Then we'll work on the details. We'll run the numbers. You're paying consultants to run the numbers. Let's figure out big picture, and then we'll get to the details.
Big picture idea number C, letter C. All right, this is a new one that we've not exactly presented. It's come out of some feedback from the community surveys and some school board meetings. Idea C scope. You have a pre-K 12 at the high school in Anita. You also have a pre-K 6 here at the CAM building, here at this building here in Messina, the South building, all right? So you have pre-K 12 in Anita, all at the high school site. You have a pre-K 6 here in Messina at this building. So it's additions and renovations and updates to the existing high school to make that a junior, senior high and an elementary building, pre-K through 12. Slightly larger addition, and we do recommend the gym addition at that point. You renovate and update the existing CAM South building here for this to become a pre-K 6. You give consideration for childcare in that new addition down there, but we are recommending the entire east half of this building is removed. It's demolished. The entire Anita Elementary building is demolished. You have the athletic and field updates, and you have the CTE updates also that we've discussed previously on the high school building. Again, same square foot renovation, same full renovation. What does it include? The allowance for the athletic fields, the CTE. We are allowing a $500,000 allowance for the North Elementary building demolition and some whatever remodeling it takes to put an entry back on that and add the childcare component to that. And then we are allowing a $500,000 allowance for the demolition of the east side of this building, and then any of the renovations needed for that newer piece, to put an entry on there and add the childcare component to that. All right. So it programmatically keeps your existing programs the way they are, with the exception of this is just elementary, the junior high kids, the 7th and 8th grade kids move up to Anita. It uses existing schools in both towns. All buildings are new and completely renovated and modernized. It will feel like CAM. It is a better use of existing square footage. And the 7th and 8th grade kids benefit from the high school programming pieces as we've talked about earlier. Cons, your elementary teachers don't gain any benefit because they're still in separate buildings. Your elementary class sizes still remain unbalanced. There's still some redundant staff. We do have new systems, so you do save on that money, but you're still gonna have some redundant food service pieces by just having 2 buildings in 2 separate towns. Yes.
I just want to add a pro to that, because I did put that on my survey as well. One pro to that is there's no littles in car seats in our cars, but would then be freely riding on a bus, however many miles. So that option would keep all the littles off the bus traveling the highway. So, perspective.
So the North Elementary building is completely removed, except for the newer multi-purpose addition there. We do a significant renovation of the high school facility. There's your CTE addition, a little bit larger classroom addition, and the gym component. So if that's gonna be all pre-K 12 in that building, we do recommend that second gym. You also have the field upgrades in Anita that we've talked about. Here in Messina, that entire east side of the building here, this engineered building, metal building piece, that goes away. You do a significant renovation on this side of the building here with the gym and everything. That addition over there, that's the newer addition, becomes an area for childcare, and we have some opportunities to reconfigure site access, site circulation, and a larger playground area for both the childcare and the elementary piece here at this particular building. So again, this scenario, your elementaries are still in each town, but you have 7 through 12 also there, all in Anita.
Based on this scenario, that half of the building can house all their pre-K 8, pre-K 6.
Yes. You're basically a 1-section elementary. So it's 1 classroom per grade. The last idea here for discussion at the high level. This is one we've presented before, but this is an all pre-K-12 at the high school in Anita. So additions, renovations, and updates to the existing high school. So that becomes a junior, senior high, and elementary building. It's the largest classroom addition, also includes the gym addition. The existing elementary is demolished. We keep that area for childcare on that multi-purpose building that's newer. And this entire building down here in Messina would be demolished with the exception of the newer piece that is kept for childcare. Same field updates and CTE addition pieces, same allowances that we've talked about previously. Pros and cons. All buildings are completely new and renovated. Everybody's under one roof. It'll feel like CAM. Maximizes existing square footage. This is the only one scenario that truly maximizes square footage to the most possible. All grades benefit from programming under one roof. You have minimal redundant staff. This is the one that maximizes savings for your new heating and cooling systems plus the square footages. There's no redundant services. You've got one kitchen, one food service. All teachers and staff benefit from being together, not just the elementary students or elementary teachers together. Your elementary class sizes can be balanced. The biggest con, obviously, is that this community loses out on a school, keeps an option for a childcare facility here. That's a $20.5 to a $30.3 million piece. So we've got the 4 ideas, A, B, C, and D. Graphically, again, the elementary building goes away in Anita as we've shown. The CTE addition, we have some options for classroom additions, the gymnasium component, and the field upgrades. Down here, this whole facility goes away. You keep the newer piece for childcare.
And some of it's shared teachers too. And then get the shop class and home economics and food recipes. Some of it's shared teachers.
So the question was, why can't you keep things the way they?
Keep the 10-8 here, and in Anita, dissolve the elementary school and move that elementary into the high school, so that this is what she's asking.
That's a variation of idea A, right? So you still have high school and elementary in Anita. In that particular option, we showed building an elementary building where the existing one was at. But if that's an option you like, if that's an option we can support, you can support from where things are located and what the program is, we can certainly move the elementary building over and attach it to the high school. That's not an issue. But you absolutely get, there's just, if any school board member or Paul, you want to talk about the efficiencies of where the grades are aligned and what's lacking. It's hard for me, I guess, to articulate that anymore, that you're not gaining those efficiencies with the junior high kids here separate from your high school.
If you look at it, it comes down to staffing and certification. Elementary teachers are certified pre-K-6. Secondary teachers that can teach junior high and high school are certified 512. So when I have a science teacher that is 512, and I have 8 periods in the day, and I need one more science teacher for 2 periods, and my high school science teacher can teach those 2 periods because of the schedule, then I got 2 FTEs, and I don't have 2.25 FTEs teaching science. Because those FTEs equate to about $65,000 times an FTE for a teacher on the average. So can you save $12,000 to $20,000 a year because you didn't have to hire, and then go find that 0.25 teacher? They don't come that way all the time. Right? You want to look at my certification online? I was a PE teacher, I was a math teacher, I was a principal, I was a special ed director, I was a superintendent. I have a bus license. Okay? I can do all those things legally. If I don't have those things, then I can't do those things legally. So when you want that flexibility and you're staffing, so like elementary teachers, you put them all together, that 24 and 8, okay? My third child went through that, was 33 and 10. And she was in the class of 33. One teacher, no para. Nobody thought about moving that. Maybe that's why I think about that when I come into school districts. Where are we balanced? Because I think it impacted my child's education, not positive. But if I have 24 and 8, 32, 16 and 16, there we go. Okay? And by the way, when you have 8, when little Johnny or Paul screw up, I'm pretty sure the other 6 parents know what went on. And I don't know, but my kids aren't perfect. Okay? And I don't really need to know everybody's, what's going on with my kid. So you want to talk about efficiencies and better education. That gives school districts flexibility. I can tell you in the other district I work for, they need 3 sections of 2nd grade. You're not going to get that 3rd section this year because you can't hire that teacher. They are not there. So we will put larger classes together, 2 teachers. If we have somebody that can help, we can move them into that room and move them out when we need them. But you can't do that when you're 11 miles apart. As easy. You might do it like in the morning in one building and in the afternoon in the other. Okay? But that's what they're talking about educationally and the benefits of doing that by certifications. Okay?
Piggybacking off of that, like option D, what happens when CAM school district can no longer sustain 2 grade level teachers? I know you kind of mentioned that. So we go with option D. Do you bus our kids then north to the elementary because it's brand new and you know what I'm saying? It's just a thought that popped into my head.
That becomes a school board and superintendent decision.
Because that's a realistic feat.
Yes.
And then you dissolve this building eventually anyway.
If numbers don't maintain,
right,
then you have to do that.
Right.
And if you're and I'm going to tell you, if you ask the superintendent by the numbers, what would you do? I'm not going to say it's popular, but I'm going to tell you, you're going to do the last option. You're going to put everything under one roof. I don't care where you put it. You can put it in the middle of a cornfield. Couldn't afford it, I'd tell you that. But if you could put a K-12 in a school district this size, you will be very efficient. Then you got a lot more flexibility and you can maintain it longer. If you want to see a lot of examples of that, go to the Corner Conference. A bunch of small schools that did a bunch of sharing, but the ones that had less trouble financially were sitting under one roof. Okay? But that may or may not be what people here want. And
I completely understand that. I fear for the districts. You build all this in Anita for option C. In Messina, in Cumberland, we have the option of Griswold, Atlantic, Corning, Creston, Greenfield, Nottoway Valley, to take all our kids there. I mean, that's just another thought.
Yeah.
There's a point though where we kind of have to pull our hearts out of the decision and look at it financially and what is best for our kids. Right now, we have our hearts in there wholeheartedly.
If you put kids first, we're going to talk about this with the 3 people up here, and I still want to give them a round of applause for all their presentations. I do this for a living. I live it, breathe it every day. Okay, they did it for maybe 48 hours. Okay, that's what brought me on Monday. Okay, but if you do what's best for your kids and their education, and you make that decision first tonight, it will be the right decision for the school district. I get the personal side of it. Everybody looks at how it impacts my family. Okay? We had a conversation last night at the ball game. I put on my AD hat. You already know who I'm talking about. I put on my parent hat. You know, I put on the high school coaching hat. You know, I do all these things. And that's how you're making that process. That's why we want that input. And we want to know what you want to support. Okay? So all of these things are very real. But if you look at things educationally, what we're doing right now with our elementaries isn't the best we can do for our kids. People like me will not tolerate that. If you're not doing what you can, what's best for our kids, then I'm going to push to think about what is best for kids and educate your kids the best. Because they are our future. That is the purpose of us as a school district, is to educate your kids. That's our bottom line. The best we can with the resources we have.
Your speech just basically told us where you and the school board stand as option D.
No, that is not.
It's in my head and it's in a lot of other people's heads.
I'm telling you, if you want to be the most efficient.
I understand.
That is.
But now you just put it in our mind.
No.
So does it matter at this point?
Yes, it does.
I don't know.
They're saying.
So what's that, put this out
Cost-wise,
here?
if you look at cost
What if I
wise,
put this out here, instead of putting everything in the Anita, let's bring everything in Messina.
Can't afford it. And if we don't have a spending authority, then lose everything.
Okay, going back to what we consolidated this year.
Can everybody just be quiet and listen? Where you might, somebody might help us out. Where we were sitting at enrollment and seeing them, and Anita had started conversations, Dan, I don't know.
When we first started about conversations?
When you started conversations, what was enrollment trends tending to be?
Well, somebody else might have to help me with that, but when it was first talked about consolidation at the first vote, they gave projections on where we would be, which was basically half the size we were at the time. And it became very true. I don't know if anybody believed at the time they talked about it, but Linda, you could probably speak to it better than. Yeah.
We started with just one or two classes for high school, didn't have a teacher, so they came up there. So it started very small.
And we had two unique situations in the district. See, them had cash, but we didn't have the authority to spend it. Anita didn't have any cash. They couldn't pay their bills, but they had the authority to do it. Well, you need both those things. And that's what made it a good partnership. And that's what got us started. Again, so we could both communities could educate their kids properly.
I was on the school board at that time, and that's not the way it was. And I don't want to argue, it doesn't much matter. We had unspent balance.
Yeah.
Our ratios were good.
Yes.
And it turned out to be a good thing. We all seen it coming. We all seen numbers weren't going to work. The financial end of it really was driven by the number of students, which again is why I think it's important to have a forecast for those things. But you know, at the time before we talked to you guys, we talked to Atlantic, we talked to Derek Casey, and then we came down here. We found a lot of hesitation down here, and I think it was kind of a pride thing. And Anita had the same pride. Everybody was like, we don't want to lose our school. And I'm not going to say that the cost on any of these options scares the hell out of me. And it does mostly because we haven't got the information on the students, anything like that. The windmills or the wind turbines are a little unstable, some things like that. But if we start looking at some of this, there are ideas up there that will basically save both communities, because schools are important to the livelihood of the community, no matter what. It isn't necessarily always totally efficient, but it's important. And another thing to throw into it is when we were going through all the negotiation and all that kind of stuff, you know, you have to look at, or at least I felt we had to look at our elementary students more than the other students. Because a small child that is afraid because he gets on a bus in Anita and comes here, or he gets on a bus here and goes to Anita, you know, that makes a difference on his education. You need to keep their confidence up and them to look forward to school and to be happy about school. And some of these decisions change that aspect that each community should think about, because it makes a difference. The first 3 or 4 years in school is important. All that stuff directs or molds a child's confidence and how he's absorbing things educationally, those kind of things. So you kind of got to put some of the pride that both Anita and Messina had in the old days, kind of try to get that out of it, make a decision that is best for those smaller kids and will keep our survival the longest. Because, and nobody's gonna like to hear this, but someday, no matter what we do here, we're gonna be in a levy. It's just gonna happen. The numbers are gonna continue to drop. It's gonna happen. Not a good thing. I don't want it to happen because I think it will affect both of the communities. But someday it's gonna happen. So we gotta look at what's gonna make us survive the longest and educate our kids the best we can for that time.
And the one scary thing about this $20 million or $30 million.
Which is $20 or $30 million.
No, the real scary part is that's not tied to the school. If we have to close the school tomorrow, you still have to pay the $20 or $30 million. And so then what happens in that standpoint is you pay Atlantic taxes plus CAM taxes. And that's something everybody has to think about. And that's one reason why they talk about efficiencies and making sure the school can survive.
Hey, it goes back to that forecast of students, you know, what's going to happen in the next 5 years. And over the last 15 years, gives you a kind of a line on what's going to happen in 10 years. And personally, I wish we had that information.
We do have that information. Yeah. We have a chart that we've shown that over the past 10 years, you're actually up about 60 students over that 10-year time period in your certified implement.
Does that include the online?
No, we do not include that really because that is not a
because they don't get 100%.
They don't attend here. We don't count them in the square footage for needs of classroom space.
Physical bodies in the schools.
Yes.
And Iowa Connections was to go away, you know, roughly $150,000 of general fund and miscellaneous income. Just what it shows, if you go back and look at the detail of this, you jump from $9 million to $12 million of expenditures. That's when you add, you know, more kids to Iowa Connections. That's the flow through. The brick and mortar, I'll say this district takes 3.25% off the top for administrative. Okay, minimum of $125,000. And its inception, it was more than what Connections was making. Right now, because of COVID, it spiked and they got to 1,100, close to it. You know, and they're anticipating it to go back because everybody's going back to face, no mask, all that good stuff. We're getting past COVID, so they think 850. A little better than what it was when I first came here at 750. But that's what why those numbers move, and we have to account for that. You know, but there are more online schools. We're getting better because of COVID. It's teaching online.
Can I just say the school bills each district that sends a student here the full $7,200, and then we keep 3.5%, and the difference goes to Connections. Yes. So that's why the expenses go up.
Yes, we on that chart we're showing the entire expense of educating a kid and the revenue that comes with it, but we don't. It's not a. I mean, you got to decide how much information you give people in detail. But that one is very unique to this school district. Right. So really, if you take that increase, we're 3.25% of that's coming back to us.
Okay, you say we have Connections Academy. Do we have to upgrade that building?
It's online. They don't use it.
It's their building. What's that building?
It's their building.
It's theirs.
They have to maintain it.
They maintain it. We don't maintain it.
Okay.
They're just
So you're talking about the one that's south of the street?
Yeah.
That's all. No, we don't do anything with that.
The only thing there is that all the kids that come in are the school has to accept them.
We go through the process of acceptance. Yes, we have special ed meetings, any kind of issues. I'm the superintendent of those programs. It's like an online elementary, middle school, and high school. They're all over the state. We touch probably close to every school district in the state of Iowa.
If they send their students to the school district, then we're responsible.
Yes. We have to make sure they get a quality education. The oversight has to come from our school. Yes. Yes.
Is there any way you can put A, B, C, and D all on one screen? The pros and cons? The pages you had that were.
Ask your daughter.
Pros and
How about when we get to asking you to voice your opinions, I will go back through and put those slides back up and give you plenty of time to respond to those surveys so that you can see all those again.
We want to take a 10-minute break.
No.
They would like to vote, if people can stay and discuss as long as they would like to.
All right.
But in consideration of their time, whether they have somebody watching their kids or whatever, they would like to.
Okay. We're going to move into the survey. You need to go to menti.com with your smartphone. If you don't have a smartphone or a device, I have a handful of iPads. Okay. The survey is just tonight. Not leaving it open.
Midnight or?
Just tonight. We need to vote here tonight. The first question is going to be, which option can we eliminate? We're going to eliminate it. We're going to ask you to vote for the three. You want to eliminate?
What's the code?
Hey, just hang on a second. Lennon, where's the iPads at?
They're right here.
Okay. We're going to make sure everybody gets a device that needs an extra device. Here is the code for those of you that want to get started. Yes.
Are you outside the district?
All right. Brought up that there may be people in attendance out here that are not eligible to vote in this school district. If you are one of those people, we would like you to please not participate.
Not eligible.
You don't live here, you couldn't vote in the general
Pay
population.
taxes on this.
We'll put the code up. I just want to get everybody on the same page here. Daniel is going to run it, and you're not going to be able to move forward until he says you can run, go for it. That's why we have that star right there. You just have to wait. Here's the code.
And I'm draining fast.
For anybody that's on Zoom, they can also see the screen and participate in the survey tonight also.
Yeah, I mean, I can't go to equal.
So the survey is just tonight. Right now, we're gonna do a live poll, we're gonna show you the results, and we're gonna go back through this to try and see if we can narrow down some of these options, some of these ideas. All right, does everybody have a device? Participate. We've got a starter question for you. What's that? Okay. All right, which community do you live in?
Okay, I know the results are on a small screen. Hey, Paul, give me one more.
Need one more.
I'm not gonna make it.
Nice nose. Yeah, you're supposed to do whatever's going on.
No, we don't
get the first question, get refreshed.
Yeah. Yeah. My phone died.
All right. Which community do you live in? Which do you associate with? 81 in Anita, 11 in Cumberland, 58 in Messina, 13 in Wyoda. We've got 165 responses so far. Barry, how many people did you count here tonight?
I had 120 plus, but I'm not a math major.
Daniel, how many people do we have on Zoom?
Let's see,
55 people on Zoom.
Yeah, it was high levels.
Okay. All right.
Who was this one?
Who else needs an iPad for this question? We've got another iPad.
I need one. Whose was this one?
There's one, Lennon, we need one over here.
This way.
Very good, thank you. I think I'm going there. Okay, I don't know if this one here.
All right, moving on to the second question. Of the 4 ideas presented tonight, which idea do you feel is the best solution? I'm going to go ahead and back these up here so you can see these again. We're We're gonna give you about 10 minutes to think about this question. Is that too long?
Yeah.
All right. 60 seconds, starting now.
And I'm gonna hit the next slide. Okay, I'm gonna hit the next question too. That's when that little thing might pop up on the top. Don't hit go to question. Answer the question and they'll ask you the next question. Yeah, be consistent.
All right.
New microphone. Okay, for the people in Zoom, I'm just going to talk to the people who are listening on Zoom in a minute. We go to menti.com. And you enter the code that is on the screen, the shared screen that you should be looking at in Zoom. That code is 5109 3836.
There you go.
Who got the bingo?
Bring your card up.
All right. So of the 4 ideas presented tonight, which do you feel is the best solution? Idea A, students remain in the existing facilities and locations. Idea B, 7-12 at the high school in Anita, all pre-K-6 here in Messina at the Camp South building. Idea C, pre-K-12 at the high school and also a pre-K-6 here in Messina. Or idea D, an all pre-K-12 at the high school location in Anita. Yeah, let's go to the results.
Option B.
Option B, 7-12 at the high school in Anita and all pre-K-6 here at the Camp South building is what is trending as the highest. We're going to move to the next question. Of the 4 ideas presented tonight, which ideas do you feel should be eliminated? It is a tie. We talked about that.
Yeah.
So we're going to get rid of both of them.
Okay.
Now we'll see what happens here. Renovate all schools, idea A, and then idea D. That's all schools under one roof, the pre-K-12, all in Anita. 63, I think we should get rid of idea A, students remain in the existing facilities and locations. And 62, for the pre-K-12, all in Anita.
Oh, you changed it.
It did.
Derek asked me if there was going to be a tie. And I said, with 200 people, the odds of a tie are very slim.
So you're saying.
Next slide. Next question.
Let's go on to the next one.
Which one should we eliminate? Option D.
Option D has 65, so we're going to eliminate option D. Are you ready? All right. Of the 3 remaining ideas, which do you feel is the best solution? A, B, or C? So people, can they vote for D?
No, it should be.
No, it's fine. Okay.
Yeah, they just.
So of the three remaining ideas, A, B, or C, which do you feel is the best solution? Does anybody want more time to think about this answer? Okay. A little bit more time.
There's supposed to be two questions, right?
You cannot move it. You can't move forward until Daniel releases this. We are intentionally holding, moving on to the next question. So this one. Does everybody answer? Okay. Of the three remaining ideas, which do you feel is the best solution? Option A has 18 votes. Option B is 84. Option C is 67. Next question, of the three remaining ideas, which do you feel should be eliminated? Option A is being eliminated. All right, we're down to two. So the options that are left are B and C. Idea B is a 7-12 at the high school in Anita and an all pre-K 6 at the building here in Messina. Idea C has a pre-K 12 all in Anita and Justin Elementary at the building here in Messina.
Mine still has D on it.
Don't choose D or A. Choose B or C.
You still have D or A?
You can't choose, you can't select them, I guess, right? It's on the list, but it's locked out. For the people in Zoom, we are down to two options. If you are participating now, you are down to two options. Does anybody need more time to answer this question? All right, let's see what the results are. Perfect. This means we have two really good solutions for you. Does that say how many people have responded on that?
181.
181. All right. Next question.
That's it.
Okay.
I mean, I have another question, but we need a winner.
We need a winner.
So with it being that evenly split, are you wanting to narrow it down to one, or do we get more of the information like Dwayne was asking?
So ideally, we would have had this, show us something clear moving forward down to one solution. But the fact that we have two solutions here that are very tied, we're going to need to bring some more information and put this back out here for a community meeting with additional information. Yes. I would like to see the pros and cons.
I used to write they're on there like half hour.
Here are the pros and cons for idea B.
I can ask the question.
And here's the pros and cons for idea C. You can see your ties to those in Zoom that are not seeing the Menti results. As far as which idea is the best. Is that good for the pro and cons of B and C? As far as schedule goes, moving forward. As far as schedule goes, there are 2 upcoming potential elections for general obligation bonds. There's actually 3, but we are not going to hit the September 14th option. We have not been able to progress this far enough in order to do that. The next one is November 2nd. After that, it is March 8th. If we were wanting to hit the November 2nd election, we need a recommendation from the Facilities Committee to the school board by August 16th. The school board would need to draft a petition with their bond council by the 20th of August. There would be a signature campaign. We need signatures to get this to go to a vote. Signatures are not, do you like the idea, do you vote yes, things like that. It's just purely, can we get this to a vote? Those signatures need to be collected by September 10th. The board would review the signatures by September 16th and pass a resolution, put it on the ballot. They would need to file with the election commissioner by the 17th in order to be able to do a vote on November 2nd. There is the option for satellite voting stations, which is something you should do in this district. And that needs to be done by October 5th, and if you plan to do those. So again, to do a November 2nd election, we need to have a recommendation to the Facilities Committee, from the Facilities Committee to the school board by August 16th. If this can't happen, and we have a very tight results, obviously you can see there between the 2 ideas being presented. Do we want to do the last question?
We could repeat. Or we
Is the last question, would you support it financially?
Yeah, based off of the answer.
Sure. We've got some work to do to get this to a point where we can move forward. So I would like to open this up to, at this point, seeing this schedule with a November election, with the next election being then March. Is there anything in particular that you need to see as a community in order to help move a solution forward?
As far as information to
information
No to the levy or the dollar amount?
to the option, the B or the C.
Just those two options, or the vote that you're talking about there?
Just the B or the C. We can't even get to a vote
Okay.
until we know which option is going to be the one that we.
It would be nice to know the busing costs and the savings in teachers for both options, those kind of things.
Okay, so all of the costs related to transportation, savings by getting to either option from both operations and staff.
Right.
And projection of
Projection of length of time the child is going to be on the bus if they're all bused down here.
We can get you some transportation projections as far as time on bus. Gary has gone through that at a couple of meetings, but I think we can get that information in, put it on the slide so you have that to reference.
Annual cost versus sustainability, what like a 5-year, 10-year, 15, 20-year down the road, what it's going to be. What I mean, like cost to run this stuff, either way, because we should know what each building should run.
Sure. We can put some projections together on just what it costs to run the building, when you would expect to start having to put more money into mechanical systems, electrical, more roof repairs, things like that. And to be honest, both facilities are going to be very close with the level of renovations that we're talking about in both options. You're not going to see a tremendous operational cost change between both options. At this point, between option B and option C, you're talking 6 classrooms difference between the options.
Yeah, but what's the bond amount? In other words, one of them was like 20,000, one's 20 million, one's 25 million to 30-some million. So in other words, what's the cost difference between B and C? Estimate.
5 million is a lot of money. That's not a lot.
So we can certainly break that out, I think, in the overall scheme of what it means to you as a taxpayer. Is that what you're asking? What's the $5 million difference mean to you as a taxpayer? Okay, so the scenarios that PFM presented were generic at 20 million and 30 million. We can rerun those based on these 2 specific ideas.
Yes, but it's the one we would go to. As the current of one potentially beyond that. Can you secure, is it possible in a bus to secure them in the event of an accident?
You put
Can they put seatbelts and stuff in the buses?
If you lease an entire fleet, every bus will have a seatbelt on.
Okay.
That is
That's what
by
I
law.
needed to know.
That's, so any new bus built after 2019 has to have, so a 2020 bus has to have seatbelts on by law.
Thank you, that's what I needed to know.
Okay, and question, if you have a 4-year-old, is that 4-year-old going to know how to run that seatbelt to get out in case there is a fire or a rollover or?
Yes, we will train them.
These are all issues.
I'm not joking. Chicks, yeah.
Are we done voting?
Yeah, you're done voting.